Good morning, everyone. You are watching Barnstable this morning. This morning, I have author Felice Cohen. She is the author of What Papa Told Me. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Thanks for having me.
I'm really interested in your book. It's such an amazing story. First, let's talk a little bit. It's a story about your grandfather's life. Tell me a little bit about why you wanted to write the book.
Well, I wrote it because my grandfather asked me to. Years ago, I found out that my maternal grandmother had not died of cancer, as I'd been told, but she committed suicide. And when I found that out, I asked my grandfather what had happened. And when he told me about her experiences in the Holocaust, which caused this depression that lasted, I wrote about it. I was at UMass Amherst, and I was a columnist. And after I wrote about her experience, he felt such relief, having unburdened himself from the secret he had never spoken about. That's when he said, "I want you to write my story. I want my children and my grandchildren to know how I survived by working hard and being lucky, but also why."
Well, and that brings me to the question I thought a lot about. Did your grandfather talk a lot about his experiences before asking you to write the book? I mean, was it something that was discussed as you were growing up?
It wasn't discussed. I grew up here on Cape Cod, and it's so idyllic here, and it's so different from his childhood growing up in Poland, especially with the anti-Semitism coming in and the war. And my mom really tried to shield us, me and my sisters, from what had happened. And I learned about it in middle school, and we read Night, and my mom came in and spoke, and that was the first time I really heard stories, and I walked out of the class at that point. I wasn't really ready to hear it, and it wasn't until college when I found out about my grandmother and I asked my grandfather that he started to speak about it.
And what was it like for you when you started to hear some of those stories and when he started to tell you some of these things? Was it difficult to hear?
It was difficult to hear. I had started learning about the Holocaust and knew the atrocities that had happened, but I didn't know that it was so personal to me and my family. And I remember, though, when my grandfather asked me to write this book and we started working together, there were moments, we'd be sitting either in Brooklyn in his home or in Boca Raton in Florida, and it was such a beautiful area where we were, but these stories he was telling were so horrific, and there were moments when he would even start to cry. And if you've ever seen your grandfather cry, it can be a little disturbing, but for me, I was kind of in journalist mode, and I was just about the facts. And I said, so you woke up next to a corpse, then what happened? And I was really kind of emotionless until I got home and started working on these stories, and that's really when the emotions began. And I realized, this is my personal family story.
And talking about some of those stories, I mean, this book really takes through a lot. I mean, your grandfather went through a lot. We're talking 7 labor and concentration camps, various ones. Tell me a little bit about his journey during the Holocaust.
Well, it started off when he was living in this town in Poland, Szczecin, and that was, he was taken away by a group, and he was sent to the first labor camp, and that was the last time he had seen his family. He was about 17, 18 years old. And so he went through, and he'd been working since he was 13 in his parents' lumberyard business. So he knew about hard work, and it was the hard work that really saved him. And it was being able to negotiate between other prisoners and the Nazis, being able to barter for food with gold or with money or whatever they had. And so that really helped him, and working hard and being young enough. And also he says hope, having hope. And as tough as the book can be, it is about hope, and it's about survival. And he tells these horrific stories, and when we were going through telling the story, he would talk about these stories that were unimaginable to people, about the time that a prisoner had stolen a potato from the mouth of a pig, and the Nazis had gathered all the Jewish prisoners in the camp, and they put the potato in the prisoner's mouth and shot him in the head and dragged him around this group and said, "See, a pig is more important than a Jew." And you hear these stories, and it's disturbing.
Very, very tough to hear, and I can only imagine trying to write that and portray that. Was it tough for your family reading the book after it came out, or was it therapeutic for them?
I think it was both. My mom and my 2 uncles, who were my grandfather's children, hadn't heard a lot of these stories. Their mother had committed suicide. My mom was 18. My uncles were 12 and 5, and for a lot of them, they lied for years and said she died of cancer because they didn't want to talk about the suicide. And, what happened to her leading up to that, they didn't know a lot of the stories from the Holocaust, and they didn't know a lot from my grandfather because he didn't want to burden his children. And I think that's true for a lot of survivors. They didn't want to tell their children. And as part of a group of grandchildren of survivors, we go around and we're in this program called We educate. And somehow being a grandchild, we're a little more removed. So we are able to ask the questions, and our grandparents, as they get older, see that they better tell these stories. And some, it's helpful to tell them, and it's been helpful for my grandfather.
Yeah, and to keep that legacy.
Yeah.
You know, your grandfather did survive, and he eventually he met his wife actually while recovering, and eventually moved to Germany, and then eventually to the United States. Did he talk a lot about that transition to you?
Yeah, he met my grandmother in Bergen-Belsen when it became a displaced persons camp. And then, you know, he had lost everybody in his family. She had lost everyone in hers. And like many survivors, they were like, let's just start again. And there was no dealing with the past. It was just trying to move on. And so then they were living in Germany, and they had some anti-Semitism happen. So they got scared it was going to happen again. So they wanted to get out of there. And, you know, my grandfather, having just learned about survival, those instincts saved him when they came to New York.
Such an amazing story. What do you hope that readers will take away from the book?
You know, I think it is that lesson of hope. You know, as hard as life can be, we all go through tremendous things, and it's about hoping that you can get through them. I think it's that positive belief. You know, my grandfather's 92. We still talk in schools, and the kids love to be able to shake his hand and meet him, to touch this living piece of history. And with many survivors, you know, there aren't many left. And I think it's up to children of survivors and grandchildren and great-grandchildren to be able to continue their stories so that this doesn't happen again. Whether it's to Jews, whether it's what's going on in the Sudan, I think it's important to, you know, to talk about things so they don't happen again.
Well, I myself cannot wait to pick up a copy of What Papa Told Me, but if our viewers are also feeling that way, where can they get a copy of the book?
Well, they can go to my website, whatpapatoldme.com. They can go to amazon.com or Barnes & Noble.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Felice Cohen, for joining us here and telling me all about your book.
Thanks for having me.
For Barnstable This Morning, I'm Sara Mannal.